the island of Guadalupe, 250 kilometers from the Mexican mainland, isolated in the open sea. It takes at least a day to reach it by boat. Its natural residents include elephant and fur seals, which were all but eradicated by 19th century hunters. But protected by the island's steep rocky coastline, some of the seals managed to survive. Over the last 100 years, they've made a comeback. Today, the island is a strictly controlled nature reserve. As bleak as it may seem, for some, this is paradise and a treasured hideout. Only here have the seals managed to elope the merciless persecution by human hunters. Elephant seals are the biggest seals on Earth. They cut a sluggish figure on land, but underwater, they're quick and agile hunters. Many of the animals here bear the scars of vicious attacks, but they're far better protected than they might seem. They're wearing a shield of blubber. This thick layer of fat protects against cold and hunger, but is also a defense against shark attacks. Out here, a hunter can suddenly become the hunted. This seal has only recently escaped an attack. It must have been a shark attack, an elephant seal's only real enemy. Blood trails show where it came back to shore, but it looks worse than it is. The injuries aren't life-threatening. On land, their immense body weight makes them slow and clumsy, but in the water, northern elephant seals are elegant endurance athletes. Even the great white shark only stands minimal chances of catching an adult elephant seal, and near the coast, the animals are unlikely to suffer an attack. Sharks don't attempt risky clashes in the shallow water. The chance of an injury is too great. The only chance for a shark to catch an elephant seal is to focus on old and weak animals, similar to the way lions pick out their prey on the savannas of Africa. It is not the sharks that have brought the populations of elephant seals to their knees, it is people. But right here on the island of Guadalupe, the elephant seal is making a comeback. The Guadalupe fur seal. Their fur has a particularly dense and soft undercoat. It made them prime targets for merciless hunters looking to make money in the fur trade. It almost wiped them out. But tucked away in the security of the rugged, rocky coastline, a few managed to survive. Today, their populations are gradually recovering. Fur seals are phenomenal swimmers. In evolutionary terms, they were once land predators that took to a life in the water, where they feed on fish, squid, and crustaceans. Seals have a torpedo-shaped body. The flattened head joins straight onto the body, while the tail is just like a leftover at the end. Arms and legs have become part of the body, right up to the elbow and knee joints. Only the lower arms and legs protrude from the body. But all of these developments make the seals more aerodynamic, the perfect shape for phenomenal divers and swimmers. Guadalupe fur seals have incredibly large eyes, which allow them to have excellent eyesight below water. Due to their tiny distribution, they are amongst the rarest fur seals in the world. Today, only one species is still allowed to hunt them, the great white shark. But strangely, the seals don't seem to have a great deal of respect for this predator that is so feared by humans. Presumably, the sharks only manage to get the better of the agile seals by launching surprise attacks. Today, the island of Guadalupe is a strictly protected nature reserve. The Mexican Navy patrols the island, and any visitors need a special permit. For over 50 years, the fur seals of Guadalupe were thought to be extinct, but today there is a renewed hope for their survival. Corsica, a Mediterranean island marked by its rugged landscape, steep coastline, and beautiful hidden bays. Its waters were once heavily exploited by coral divers, but today they're strictly protected. Only a handful of coral workers still hold permits to continue the harvest. Jean-Philippe Giordano is one of the last coral divers. For thousands of years, the Mediterranean red corals have been sought-after jewelry accessories, but it's decimated their populations. Jean-Philippe's work is very risky. To find the precious corals, he often has to reach depths of 50 meters or more. If he's lucky, he finds a big colony of corals straight away and won't have to use up his precious oxygen reserves during the search. Jean-Philippe knows these waters like the back of his hand. He knows where to look. Red corals live tucked away in crevices and under rocky overhangs. The tiny white polyps that live inside the red calcareous skeletons filter all they need from the water. Jean-Philippe is looking for corals that are big and well-shaped enough to make an attractive piece of jewelry, but he can't take too many from any one fragile coral colony. The depleted coral stocks have also been hit heavily by increasing pollution in the Mediterranean. Jean-Philippe has to be careful. In case of any problems, he won't be able to come up to the surface immediately. He has to put in brakes, or he'd be risking his life. Success. A valuable haul of corals reaches the surface. In their natural state, they seem rather unimpressive. It is Jean-Philippe's skill in crafting the coral that will bring out the stunning red color. Even today, the most beautiful pieces of coral jewelry still come from the Mediterranean. Jean-Philippe's shop in Bonifacio sells all shapes and sizes of coral jewelry, all of it from wild stocks. It has to be hand-collected and handcrafted. The red corals of Corsica have been subject to numerous myths and legends. Some say they were formed from the blood of the Medusa when Perseus cut off her head. The bright red of the corals, set against the deep blue of the Mediterranean, remains a sight to behold. Shipwrecks have always held an incredible fascination for divers. Metal and wood skeletons shrouded in mystery and offering the thrill of real danger. Now, they've also become a focus for scientists. They want to monitor how the wreck environment changes over time. It almost seems as if nature is trying to show us something, that it can turn scrap into a paradise. Some wrecks are like busy metropolises, covered in corals and inhabited by hordes of fish. They're like islands of life in the great blue expanse of the sea, offering food and shelter to countless animals. These insights are now going to help revive the waters off the French Mediterranean coastline. Extensive stretches of these coastal waters are biologically dead. They've turned into underwater deserts, killed by pollution and overfishing. It has given rise to one of the most important conservation projects in the Mediterranean, a huge artificial reef right in the Bay of Marseille. Sandrine Rurutu of the Université de la Méditerranée is the project's scientific advisor. Huge steel frames have been dumped in the sea just off the coastline. They are the foundations for this city of the sea. They are invisible from the surface, so to visit them, it is necessary to don diving equipment. Due to the currents and the sandy substrate, visibility underwater tends to be bad. Sandrine has to approach these artificial reefs at close range in order to see anything. Between the steel girders, different structures provide shelter for fish of all sizes. It may look unspectacular now, but first evaluations show that life is beginning to return. Plants and microorganisms have already begun to settle on the steel frames. Now, the first fish are following these pioneers. The scale of time needed can be seen at the wreck site of the Donator. This ship sank almost 70 years ago and lies at a depth of 50 meters just off the island of Fakarava. Its dimensions are impressive, 80 meters long and 12 meters wide, with an open storage hold and many still intact details. The Donator was a freighter that ran on a mine after the end of World War II. It lies at the bottom of a channel between two islands, and the constant currents here are the basis for the colorful life found in and around the wreck. Artificial lights reveal the stunning colors which would otherwise remain hidden in the blue depths. Everywhere on this dead ship, there is life. The ship's sides look almost like a blossoming underwater garden. Massive sea fans thrive everywhere. They filter food from the water, which is pushed through their fan-like structures by the currents. Swarms of sea perches and breams hover above the deck. Some of the deck structures are mere skeletons. They are ideal living quarters for many organisms that can find shelter and footholds here, as only rocks could normally offer them. The tragedy of this shipwreck has turned into the fascinating story of newly colonized living space. If the artificial reefs just off Marseille and other places could turn into something comparable, it would be an incredible success. The next decades will be crucial. Even today, the islands of the South Pacific still seem a world away. For many, they rank among the world's dream destinations. But from Europe, it takes at least a 20-hour flight just to get to the capital, Tahiti. From there, further flights take you to the atolls of French Polynesia. But it's worth it. They offer so much more than your average package tour. Fakarava is the second biggest atoll of French Polynesia. It's a massive circle of coral reefs offering an exceptionally rich ecosystem. Its fauna and flora is so diverse that it has been named as UNESCO's Biosphere Reserve. It's designed to protect genetic resources, species diversity, and the variety of habitats, as well as offering local people a way of living successfully in harmony with nature. In many ways, these flat islands are anything but ideal for human occupation. Fresh water is limited, and the inhabitable area is tiny. So people have to be inventive and eke out a living using the locally available resources. These islands have remained a refuge for some rare species. The trees lining the beaches are home to endangered birds, including a variety of tern and black and blue noddies. Even Tahiti blue lories are found here, which have disappeared from other islands. And the sea offers a diverse habitat for thousands of different kinds of organisms. The most colorful collection of life can be found in the passages between the small islands, where tidal waters push in and out of the atoll. Here, the hunters of the deep go on the prowl right between the colorful corals. Nature has been left largely unscathed in these waters, and the fish still show no signs of shyness. The corals offer hideouts and hunting opportunities all rolled into one. Moray eels lurk in dark crevices. Parrotfish are reef grazers and important components of the reef ecosystem. Coral reefs are often called the rainforests of the sea. They're part of the most diverse and species-rich habitats on Earth, and just like rainforests, they are vulnerable and fragile. Places like Fakarava are poignant reminders of what would be lost to the planet if these last gardens of Eden are destroyed. The builders of these mighty structures are the coral polyps, tiny invertebrate organisms that live inside the calcareous coral skeletons and feed off plankton. Coral polyps live in symbiosis with tiny algae, which use photosynthesis to turn sunlight into sugar, food for them and their hosts. And just as chlorophyll dyes the leaves of a plant green, these algae are also responsible for the vibrant colors of many corals. That's why coral reefs depend on the sun and grow up towards it. They tend to thrive in light-filled shallows. The reefs form the basis of highly complex ecosystems. The reef itself consists of relatively few different corals. There are only around 5,000 types of coral in the world, compared to 20,000 different kinds of fish that call the coral reef their home. While searching for food, some animals get physical with the reef and literally rebuild it. This yellow margin triggerfish is looking for food among stone corals. This wrasse also leaves no stone unturned while searching for something edible and reconfigures the reef in the process. The humphead wrasse is a real giant amongst the reef residents. They can grow to over 2 meters and weigh almost 200 kilos. When they search for food amongst the corals, they show just how strong they are. One of the most stunning reef fish is the parrotfish. Its curved beak is similar to that of a parrot and serves to scrape the corals in order to get to the algae. And this mixture of algae and coral debris is all swallowed. Its feces are almost entirely made of coral sand. Incredibly, this fish is responsible for most of the sand found on a reef. This sand stabilizes the reef and offers the basis for an entirely different ecosystem where tiny organisms can thrive. Reef residents use a bewildering variety of techniques to collect food. This small fish, belonging to the family of the damselfish, is tending his own algal garden. It seems to be tending something of an algae farm and even defends his crops aggressively against intruders. He growls intently to warn them off. The emperor angelfish gets the much more powerful hawksbill turtle to do his dirty work for him. The turtle is looking for sponges amongst the coral and breaks off entire chunks of it in the process. This is ideal feeding material for the emperor angelfish. It's looking for small crustaceans, which drop off their hideouts in the process. Some fish even exploit the camouflage and protection of other species. These jacks go on the hunt in the shadow of a big humphead wrasse. Silver-tipped sharks have to deal with an entire following of other species. There are various theories as to what is happening here. Either the jacks try to herd the shark out of their territory, or they are cleaning themselves by rubbing themselves against its rough skin. This trumpetfish is using a ray as cover in order to hunt in an open territory. It is cleverly pretending to be part of the imposing ray. Coral reefs are in serious danger through the warming and pollution of the sea. An estimated 20% of all reefs have already died, and around 30 to 40% are critically endangered. Time is running out for the protection of the last reefs. Coral reef residents communicate using their specific shapes, colors, and movements. Cleaner fish, for example, get themselves noticed with their erratic movements. They play a vital role in the life of the reef. They live off parasites and excess tissue that they meticulously pick off the skin, fins, teeth, and gills of a huge variety of fish. They form cleaning stations and are untouchable due to their special position within the reef system. Only they can approach big predators without running the risk of becoming their next meal. Even when they do their work right inside the jaws of a predator, they're safe. Cleaner fish are part of every healthy coral reef. Their relationship with their hosts has an advantage for both sides. The cleaner fish get fed, and the reef residents are freed of annoying parasites and dermatological problems. This shark is also giving a ride to a remora. They're often found traveling with sharks, and it's likely that they too eat the tiny parasites found on the shark's skin. When gray reef sharks take a rest in the current, any sudden movements are often in response to their escorts, the remoras. They're trying to tell the remoras not to be too bothersome. For the remoras, the sharks are ideal transport, but they make sure to stay away from the teeth. There could well be some parasites between this shark's gills. Again, the host puts up with the cleaning operation until he's had enough. These visitors to the sensitive gills could certainly be unpleasant. Cleaning inside the dangerous shark jaws falls to real specialists, the cleaning wrasse. They wait for the shark to open its jaws wide. Eventually, the shark is on its way once again, content and clean. Rurutu in the South Pacific, a bizarre volcanic island where humpback whales congregate every single summer. Rurutu is part of French Polynesia, and far from the disruption of shipping routes, belongs to a unique protection zone for marine mammals. The island is tiny, just 10 kilometers long and 5 kilometers wide, but it forms a major staging post in the epic annual migration patterns of humpback whales. When winter arrives in their Antarctic hunting grounds, they come here to the warm waters around Rurutu until summer returns to the Antarctic. Rurutu is relatively unknown compared to most South Pacific islands. Getting there is anything but straightforward, and the island itself lacks the glamorous charm that attracts tourists. But its untouched wilderness is hard to beat. Just a few flights a week bring handfuls of adventurous travelers to the island. A four-wheel drive is a must on the rough roads that are liable to instability in bad weather. In the harbor of Alvera, fishermen offer whale-watching tours for those hardy enough to have made it this far. But they don't offer any guarantees of actually seeing a whale. That is a matter of luck. But this time, they've spotted a mother with her calf. Adult whales are very cautious, but while the mother is having a rest, the calf becomes very curious. Even though this is only a calf and nowhere near its mother's massive size, keeping a safe distance is still absolutely essential. For whale watchers, this is practically the only chance to spend any time in the immediate vicinity of a whale. Adult animals tend to move on as soon as a certain safety distance has been crossed. But this mother, allows her baby to play with the divers. In the past, the island's inhabitants had a special way of predicting the whale's arrival in their waters. They watched the so-called whale tree. Apparently, when the whale tree flowers, it signals the start of the whale season in Rurutu. Between the whale tours, visitors can sample island life. Just like anywhere else, the young people of Rurutu enjoy some noisy pastimes. But most of the time, life on the island is quiet and calm. Local women still engage in traditional arts and crafts. They weave floor mats and wall decorations following ancient traditions. The children spend much of their time at the harbor, already at home in the sea. Sometimes it's even possible to see passing whales from the shore. But approaching the whales with a boat is not allowed. Only if the whale decides to come close is an intimate encounter possible. Diving with equipment is also prohibited in their vicinity, since the noisy air tanks would disturb the animals. This footage was filmed using noiseless rebreather technology. The Polynesian government issued a special filming permission. As a result, we can witness these peaceful giants up close and in their element. Sometimes it's possible to hear the whales before you can see them. Male humpback whales sing during their mating season, perhaps to attract females or to warn rival males to stay out of their way. Singing whales take on a very distinctive posture. They stand almost vertically in the water column, head down and pectoral fins extended. Scientists have discovered that every whale population has its own distinctive songs, and these songs can be heard over hundreds of kilometers. The different sounds combine to form separate verses, which are repeated in a certain sequence and constantly develop further. Whale cows are accompanied by their calves, which have been born in these waters. Sometimes a bull stays with them for protection. And although these whales are usually solitary, here at Rurutu, it's not unusual to find them in groups. Not many people are lucky enough to meet these gentle giants this intimately. It's the experience of a lifetime. Come October, the whales will be on the move once again to return to their Antarctic hunting grounds thousands of kilometers away. Then, the waters around Rurutu become quiet once again, until the whales return next year. Tahiti and its neighbor Moorea offer tourists everything they could dream of. Fascinating landscapes, palm forests, stunning beaches, and incredible diving spots to see dramatic underwater landscapes and a dazzling array of marine creatures. The beaches are secluded and protected from the open sea by the surrounding reefs, and the shallows offer incredible residence. Accomplished hunters, perfectly camouflaged and heavily armed. These are stingrays. Many rays tend to stay on the sea floor, where their flat body shape allows them to perfectly blend into the background. Hundreds of accidents involving stingrays happen every year, when swimmers accidentally tread on a hidden stingray. But for snorkelers and divers, they hardly pose a threat. Rays are closely related to sharks. Just like them, they don't have any bones. Instead, their skeletons are made up of toughened cartilage. Their pectoral fins are enlarged and function almost like wings. Even their movements look a little like those of birds gliding through the water. Stingrays have a bad reputation, but as long as they don't feel threatened, they aren't dangerous. The situation only becomes precarious when a ray whips its tail with lightning speed into the victim's body. But this is an act of defense rather than aggression. The stinger itself is flat and pointy, equipped with barbs and able to inflict deep wounds. Lethal poison glands surround the barbs. It's a perfect weapon. The barbs tear the wound, allowing more toxins to enter the bloodstream. A chest wound is almost certainly lethal. The rays of Moorea have not had to go on hunt for food for a long time. They're fed by people and have become a tourist attraction. Since the rays know exactly as the presence of humans in the water means food for them, they no longer hide in the sand, so the chance of stepping on one is vastly reduced. Still, caution should always prevail. Swimmers are well advised to walk slowly and drag their feet across the sandy floor until they reach deeper waters. The rays take this as a warning and quickly disappear. But the Moorea rays have become so used to the special treatment by tourists that they no longer hunt. They don't have to. They've virtually turned into interesting, large pets. It is the dream of a stunning tropical vacation beneath palm trees on a sandy beach. But it can be clouded by the idea of sharks lurking beneath the turquoise waves, an encounter not on the to-do list for most. But this is no cause for concern. It's a shark nursery. Even sharks have to grow into adults before they turn into fearsome hunters. Some bays on these islands are home to both lemon sharks and blacktip reef sharks. The blacktips are easily distinguished by their distinctive dorsal fin markings. The lemon shark's yellowish-green color is also unique. These juveniles will stay in the shallows, free from predators, including their own relatives, until they're big enough to fend for themselves. Blacktip reef sharks are amongst the most numerous sharks around tropical coral reefs. They usually reach around 160 centimeters in length and live off small fish and invertebrates. Blacktips prefer the shallow waters of intertidal zones and stay near the water surface, exposing their dorsal fins. Not much is known about the juvenile phase of the sharks' lives, but since practically all kinds of shark are threatened throughout their range, scientists are devoting more time to their study. In French Polynesia, they're investigating lemon sharks. The researchers have cordoned off part of the bay using mesh netting. This is a young female. She is photographed and measured.
Okay. So it's 69 centimeter.
A piece of skin is taken for lab tests and DNA samples. If she is caught again in a year's time, it will be possible to work out her growth rate and just how long it will take her to reach her full size. The lemon shark is impressive. It is one of the biggest types of shark, reaching an astonishing 3 meters. It faces few natural enemies. Only a few other types of shark or its own cannibalistic relatives could threaten its survival. If left in peace, it poses no danger to humans. But when the tables are turned, anglers and fishermen pursue these sharks for their highly prized fins or even just for fun. The lemon shark has become a hunted hunter. Gray reef sharks are found in the deeper parts of the reef channels. They are bigger than the blacktips and are often found in schools, hovering calmly in the currents. Like all sharks, they lack a swim bladder, so without movement, they would sink. The currents found in the reef channels allow them to stay still and avoid sinking with only minimal effort. At the same time, they let the water wash through their gills. Big groups of these sharks offer imposing views, but don't pose any danger to humans. They hunt primarily at night and live off a wide spectrum of small fish and crustaceans. Nurse sharks prefer to stay in hideouts. During the day, they often rest in caves and don't like to be disturbed. The barbels found around their mouths carry tasting cells that aid them in tracking down hidden prey. And even though they can reach lengths of over 3 meters, they are classed as harmless to humans. At night, nurse sharks scour the reef for sleeping prey. When they find something, they suck out the prey hiding in cracks and crevices. The ecological balance of the coral reef depends on the sharks, and for that, humans ought to pay them respect, not out of fear.